Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? It's not me. I'm not going to do it. Things are going great. We're going to have a great time today. I'm glad you all made it. What are folks saying in the chat? Charlowski's first in. Good morning, Count and crew. Indeed. Good morning, MMK007 French Fry with the thumbs up. We love thumbs up indeed. Do the thumbs up thing. Good morning, fellow gangsters. It's going to be a fantastic day. Let's do the time warp again. Fun movie. It's just a swing to the left. You put your knees in tight. You do the pelvic thrust. Can't remember the song. Susan Sarandon was great in it, though, wasn't she? We were fans. Good morning, gang. Prepare to taste the glory. We're going to taste that glory today. Nice bridge in the cover art. Feel at home, says JJ Fox. That bridge is one of my fun predictions, I believe, coming true. We're going to talk about it today. We love bridges. I'm a big bridge guy, by the way. Do you know that I actually, for years, said I would move back to Montreal when they completed the bridge, and I moved back just around the time that they completed the bridge. COVID and all the coincidences around that, but indeed, we love the bridge in Montreal. We love bridges. Good morning, gang. Indeed, ES Empire. Glad you're here. Chatelet, friends. Chatelet, barely 45. Good morning, gang. Good morning, Lee J369. You guys doing the time warp again. We are always doing the time warp. He hath that ear. Let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. Revelation 2:7. Just wondering, Chef Zero, if you caught the Trump scripture that he read at the thing in DC this weekend. Just wondering if you did catch it. Please put a note in the comments. I'm wondering what your thoughts were about it. Good morning, blessed Bampians indeed. Chatelet, Lindsay, Joey, Macklemore. Bitcoin YQR says, very saddened by the news that the Bitcoin rodeo has been canceled for this year. Was very much looking forward to the conference. Well, I will say, Bitcoin YQR, don't give up on it yet. For the dates, definitely give up on it. The dates aren't happening, that's for sure. Now, I don't have any special information other than I got a heads up on the cancellation, and I just started to discuss it with Dave, who you all know. Indeed, in the chat, Dave talking about the CB Van asking, is that the Bitcoin Bull conference that Dave Bradley has a hand in? Bitcoin Rodeo. It is. It's a great event. It's a real Bitcoiner event out in Calgary, Alberta, usually in anticipation of the Stampede. So usually about a week or two before the Stampede. But this time around, it is not going to be happening around that. But what I do believe is going to happen, and it's just a rumor right now, it's just a thought right now, but I do think it will happen, that there will be something around the time of the referendums in October. I think you'd get a lot of Bitcoiners coming out for that. So I'm not positive, but I would say don't be too discouraged by the event cancellation, because there can likely be a way of catching up and still doing it this year. So it's not a guarantee, but when he canceled it, I said, hold on, you should have, definitely consider doing it around that time. So I said, make a formal postponement announcement and then come up with a date later. For a bunch of reasons, they chose a cancellation approach for now, and then maybe restart it later in a slightly different iteration. But I believe that the energy that is amassed, that people love about the Bitcoin rodeo, will still convene, and it will still happen this year. But I'm just going on vibes. But I do think it'll happen, and it's not a 0% chance, and it is being discussed. And I think there's a good reason to be optimistic about still happening this year. Bitcoin YQR says the Bitcoin Rodeo is one of the oldest conferences, started in 2018. Yeah, and so again, lots of great Bitcoiners in Calgary and Alberta, says Bitcoin YQR, which is exactly why I think it's going to happen. So that's my That's my thought. That's my thought. What shirt are you wearing today, Nolan? I'm wearing the Cypherpunk Capitalist shirt. This is Cypherpunk Capitalist. That's what we're on with today. I basically only wear swag now. That's my whole wardrobe is swag. Why not? Why not? Anyone going to Camp Nakamoto in New Hampshire next month? It is a great idea. Maybe I will. I did hear from who's going to Camp Nakamoto. It's Tom Luongo, who I had on my show the other day. So pretty interesting attendee that'll be there. The Rocky Horror Picture Show, indeed. Champlain, what a guy. We love Champlain, says Segane Sank on Sank. And we love the bridge to our peace-filled future. That's what we're talking about today. Oh, and Luke Groman told me to tell you guys to be very afraid. Yeah, I'm not even gonna talk about the Luke Groman interview. I could honestly, his whole vibe, the looking away all the time, and that look he has on his face all the time, where he's like, "Can't you believe? You know what I just said? Think about it this way." I can't deal with his cadence and the way he talks. I would like to at least entertain his worldview, but I simply can't sit through 5 minutes of that guy. Not even close. Not even close. And then with the too cute Bitcoin stuff, it's just it's completely. I don't understand why people like this guy. I can't get it. Like I can't get into Luke. I've never been into Luke Groman stuff. But since he sold his Bitcoin stack, I don't even know why people pay attention to him. Like I can't understand it. Maybe it's me. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I don't think so. I think Luke Groman has I mean, he's got a well thought out point of view and he's got a business and all that stuff, but I just don't understand. I could entertain his ideas if his actual delivery wasn't so off-putting. Let me put it that way. Good morning, Tommy DOU. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Morning, Bitcoiners. Johnny Minus in the house. I'm Double B. Sunshine, thumbs up indeed. Lucky in the house. Good evening. We are winning, and the Bitcoin is still working indeed. Matt, good morning, team. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. My Brewers finished off a sweet sweep of the Cubs at Wrigley last night. Very entertaining series. I bet. Sounds intense, discombobulating body language. That's what I mean. There's something about like he can't just deliver a sentence. It's all got to be. It has to be that he's leading you on to reorganize your worldview, and he's like giving you a moment, but it seems like he's making it up as he's going along. So he's doing all these like eye things everywhere every time he talks. So it's like it gives me a weird vibe. Driving into the city today, I saw a bumper sticker that said "Buy Canadian, Buy America" stuck to a Jeep. Matt, don't look to Canadians during this time for any sort of coherence and consistency. It's just mental illness. You're looking at a giant psycho ward. Other than Quebec, I mean, Quebec we still have, and Alberta, of course, and a lot of the countryside, but most of the country is a big mental institute. A better way to think about it. All right. We are going to talk about mental institute type content in 1 second because we're going to NPC news. But before we do that, let's acknowledge that's a massive sunrise on our hands and Bitcoin is running. We are currently at 77,000 US trash tokens of Bitcoin. We're doing great, everyone. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. CB Van says, didn't know about the Groman interview. Yeah, it's Tales from the Crypto episode. Exactly. Okay, we got our coffee in us. Now we're going to start. So it's been real warm up here the past couple days. And we have been, flirting with swimming. We've been at the lake. My kids actually yesterday at their pod were playing in the outdoor splash pad. One of them opened where they have their little homeschool pod. When I went to pick up my kids yesterday, they had totally new clothes on because they had gotten so wet when they got back to their little school. And so everyone, you know, what you got to do at the beginning of every one of these summers is warn people. It's true. Drowning is always a risk. You always have to warn about drowning. It's a real thing, obviously. And the subtle lesson here is drowning is always much quieter than you think it is. It's not some big loud thing. It's usually just through neglect and not paying attention. So that's one way to be on guard against the drowning thing, because drowning is mostly silent and quiet and goes unnoticed. So the whole thing's real. You got to do the public service announcements. But luckily, the Houston News here also has another tactic that you've probably never thought of before. So we always got to be alert around the pools and the lakes. It's really important, as I said. We don't want any drownings. They happen more often than we'd like to admit and than we'd like to see, of course. Now, where the hell is this story? There we go. But there is another way to avoid some drowning risks, and you're not going to believe it, guys. I wish someone would have told me this years ago. I've been a parent for a while now. Now we find out the truth. Experts are here to let us know that swim lessons, guys, you're not going to believe this. I know vigilance is important, and I thought that was the way to avoid the drownings and to make sure that we know they're not always a big splashing ordeal, that they're quiet. You got to pay close attention. But we get this as well, guys. Swimming lessons, according to the experts, can actually reduce the drowning risk. So hold on here, guys. If you know how to swim, okay, stay with me. I know we touch on global politics and macroeconomics, and I know we deal with a lot of simple things every day here on the show. But let me just go into the realm of the complex for 1 minute. Swim lessons, everyone. Swim lessons can actually reduce the drowning risk. And the number is by 88%. That's real. Okay, that is real. YMCA experts are here to make sure we know that swimming classes, learning how to swim, all of it works to prevent drowning. Now, we're going to have a much better summer. I can feel the vibes changing already. We're finally getting to a point where we can tackle the big issues. And thank God we live in the modern era with experts like this. It's just perfect. It's perfect. Now, we need a few more experts as well. Thankfully, though, we have some. Normally, I don't cover any of these mass shooting stories, right? I'm not a shooting story guy. You don't come around here. I generally will never talk about them. But this one has me interested. The San Diego mosque suspects' writings reveal influence of online extremism, experts say. A 75-page document and a live stream video apparently created by the gunman, echo previous shootings fueled by extremist ideology. I just wish they wouldn't misgender them, though, like that. That's pretty crazy. The two teenage suspects in this week's deadly attack on a San Diego mosque appear to have written a 75-page document replete with neo-Nazi ideology, incel rage, and racist meme culture drawn from the darkest corners of the internet. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Authorities looking into the motivation behind the shooting are working to authenticate the lengthy typewritten document, which is filled with vitriol. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But experts are letting us know here, guys, that they're online extremists, obviously. Now, hopefully we get a little less of the online extremism, because thank God, George Soros, according to the AP, the Associated Press, George Soros Foundation's pledge 300 million US trash tokens for US democracy amid attacks on non-profits. Guys, we're getting a little Soros bump to strengthen and fortify our democracy. Isn't that great news? Isn't this great news? Thank God for the Soroses strengthening our democracy. Though, how can we really have a democracy? How can we have a democracy with all of the trouble around, with all of the Trump business, with all of his authoritarianism, right? And he's not even doing anything, as we see that the country, right, is getting swallowed up by all of these new viruses. Look at this. COVID is shaping America's reaction to Ebola and hantavirus. Global health emergencies are back in the headlines with recent outbreaks of hantavirus on a cruise ship and Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I love how they still call it the Democratic Republic of Congo. The internet has responded accordingly, with the situation evoking painful reminders of COVID-19 for many people. Questions filled with fear have surfaced on Reddit, comedic videos all over TikTok and Instagram, and search terms involving the word pandemic have increased on Google Trends in recent weeks. The COVID-19 pandemic introduced people across the US to a global health emergency that they could have never imagined. Yes, yes, yes. But what's going on here? The COVID-19 effect on Americans. There is the dread factor with certain diseases. Indeed. Yes, indeed. It's the dread factor, everyone. But these diseases spread differently. That's good news. That's good news. What do we got here, though? The larger context of pandemics, right? Okay, the larger context. What to think about what you hear about a new disease, right? What to think about, right? What to think about. What do we have to think about? Are people talking about spreading the same way that COVID does? Be very wary of what you see on social media. If it's not coming from an official press source, because there is a lot of disinformation being deliberately spread. Harvey, the Instagram influencer, said that since COVID-19, she calls herself the hand washing police. She carries hand sanitizer in her purse and constantly makes her son wash his hands. A lot of these things become routines for us. Rivers said if people are worried, they can wear a mask and avoid crowded places, or if available, vaccinate. Vaccinate. Just do it. It's great. And but obviously the US, stupid Trump again, is simply choosing not to stop Ebola outbreak after massive public health cuts. Experts say that Trump, he's just partying with the money, just partying out there. What is he doing? What is he doing? What am I doing here? Sliders. There we go. So that's what we got for that stuff, right? It's not going great. Now we got some other weather stuff. It's quite hot everywhere. And bad news, Europe's green energy future has a reindeer problem. Yes, reindeers famously love the cold, and apparently there's too many of them because of the cold. And so, of course, the green energy has to displace them because of the coldness, right? The heat, I mean, the heat. You got to solve that problem. We get this. We got a problem. Scientists say 4-day moorland blaze was UK's first mega fire. This comes on the heels of the Godzilla Super El Nino, and we got mega fires. What are we going to do? And it gets even worse. Michigan, the actual state, the state of Michigan, guys, the state of Michigan has a fever, and the symptoms are only getting worse. Experts say the experts believe a state has a fever and it's getting worse. Michigan essentially has a fever, and we know that this upward trend will continue as our emissions continue at the same level. Everyone, we got a major problem. Michigan is sick. It's got a pandemic of the state, not the people, the state. We know the rain is falling faster. Guys, the rain is faster than ever before. We've been timing the rain. We have the F1 race here in Montreal on the weekend. We got the race with the timers for the pole position. We're going to have Rolex here. They do the timing. Rolex is also used to measure the speed of rainfall. You should see the data sets we have around the world about the speed of rainfall. It's terrible. It got so much faster. And now we know that it's falling heavier. The rain is heavier and faster because of global warming, right? Terrible news. And that's the problem. We got this problem in Michigan, the whole state. Heavier rain, faster rain. It's like when you blow your nose when you're sick. It's much worse. That's what's going on with Michigan. And Michigan is sick. We get this. Climate change triples chance of deadly 2026 South Asia pre-monsoon heat wave. What were your check Kalshi, check Polymarket? What were the odds of the South Asian pre-monsoon heat wave? It turns out it's tripled because of climate change. Whatever the odds are, they're 3 times worse because climate change, guys. Climate change, 3 times worse pre-monsoon heat wave. You're not going to believe it, guys. Southeast Asia, guys, is going to be hot soon, before the monsoons. Soon. We got problems. No one could prepare for this. What about their reindeers? What's going on there? So hot. Southeast Asia, I would have never guessed that the poor people of Malaysia and Vietnam and Thailand and the Philippines, Singapore, Bangladesh, can you believe they have to live through a heat wave? What? No way. It's not so great, people living through heat waves. Well, at least they lived. Right? The Maori in New Zealand, right? Climate risk is worsened by colonialization, guys. The Maori, they don't just have the heat waves in New Zealand. They've also got the colonization. And that makes the climate risk worse because the British had emissions when they came and colonized. Some people came on steamships. Some people came on engine. They found New Zealand so late, it was kind of after all the sailboats were around. So it wasn't really green colonialism down there in New Zealand, right? New Zealand got the old diesel colonialism, big boats coming in. And the poor Maori, who had just arrived there as well, a couple hundred years earlier, have a problem. And they got the colonization. It made the climate risk worse. A sweeping national climate assessment argues that exclusion from decision-making has amplified indigenous vulnerability to floods, storms, and erosion. Uh-oh. Bad news for New Zealand. Climate risk worsened. Not going well. They're not doing great. It's not going great. Not going great. What are people saying here? Perfect NPC math. Crisis, what crisis? Worry not, NPC. Got plenty on tap. See Soros, the seditious activity must be terminated. You must battle the dread. Well, overheard someone in the grocery store saying that Trump left WHO unfunded, so Hanta will be worse than COVID. Not worse than COVID. No. Someone give Michigan some ivermectin. Gretchen Half-Whitmer will take care of the fever in Michigan. Someone consult the Doomsday Glacier. Indeed, what's going on with the Doomsday Glacier? You always get the hottest takes at the grocery store. I think it's all the cured meats. Indeed. Jack 2K, we were all late this morning, or I was late anyway. There you go, everyone. Okay, so Chef Zero, this is what I was looking for. Chef Zero did talk about it. He says, see it now, King's people called by my name will humble themselves. 2 minutes of Bible reading, interesting verse. I didn't watch it, just saw the extra dramatic thumbnail. Somewhat prophetic. This is a rebuke of Israel. Yeah, exactly. As they went after idols and false gods. Have to pray about this. Difficult to interpret, which exactly this verse. Old Testament, not usually cited. Exactly. That's what I thought. Yeah. That's what I thought. Not usually cited. Yeah. Jesus is king. I stay away from water. I find it to be racist, and swimming is basically accepting racism. Good morning, crew. God bless. Yeah, exactly. President Trump was said to have a very frank, somewhat upsetting phone call with Bibi yesterday. Perhaps he quoted the Bible. Bibi is said to have his hair on fire, reportedly. Yeah, I think Bibi's pretty much done, I think. Trump wants us all to die of hantavirus right after dying for Israel. Exactly. You're all going to die for Israel's sake, guys. Israel. Israel. Okay, that's what we got today. I'm going to have a sip of coffee and then let me wipe out these NPC news updates to get some more CPU freed up so I can see more of my real news stories. Okay. Just one more second. Not all of them loaded. I don't understand the degradation of. So I normally pull up I load the stories on a separate computer on a laptop, and then I load them over by opening. You can do that with Apple, like open on another device. So I just open them on this one for a couple of days. They all load up just fine, and then out of nowhere, they start to not load up. Like the link is there, the page is there, but they don't preload, which I don't understand. But after a while, it happens. Lucky says most people in Israel hate Bibi. Yeah, that's my impression. I think Bibi. That's kind of what I've been saying for a while here about Israel. Is that now, no doubt Israel hits above its weight when it comes to influence. That is, I will never not admit that. But Israel is divided in the exact same way that every Western country is divided. You got the libtards, you got the shit libs, you got the MAGA people, you got the populists, you've got the conservatives. You have a whole breakdown in Israel that's exactly the same as every other country. Bibi just happens to be much weaker within that architecture than Trump is in America. And they don't really have a robust MAGA populist thing. They have kind of like old school conservatives, a little bit like Canada, I guess you could say. And the result of all of this is that the division and the desperation and the need for Netanyahu to use all the old tricks. I mean, he's 100% in on the blackmail stuff. So because he doesn't really enjoy a populist support, because he doesn't really have, and he has real enemies, right? The Supreme Court and all that stuff. The institutional division of Israel is complete. There are sections of Israel that the shit libs totally dominate and won, including the Supreme Court, including much of the judiciary. And so the result of it is because there is this weird imbalance that's hardened in Israel. Netanyahu is up to all kinds of tricks to stay in power. He's been around for 30 years or something now, right? It's been since the 90s. I can still remember people freaking out about him here in Montreal coming for a visit after he was out of office the first time. And I think he was out of office the first time in like 98 or 99 or something. So he's been around my whole life and awareness of Israel. I didn't really pay much attention to Israel until the Yitzhak Rabin assassination. And for some reason, the Rabin assassination got me curious about what the hell was going on in Israel, and the what were they called back then? The Oslo Accords. And so that was the two-state solution that led to Yitzhak Rabin getting assassinated. So for some reason, I became interested in Israel only for the first time. Weirdly, I remember hearing about Rabin getting assassinated in the car with my dad. We were driving somewhere, and it was the same day that the Rolling Stones had just released the Like a Rolling Stone cover from the famous Bob Dylan song. And so I don't remember which came first, but he was driving me to we were doing like, I was just a kid, but we were doing like an adult, like make believe. I wasn't that young, I guess. I think I was 15 or something like that. And we had like a couples dinner dating situation at someone's house. And so where, it was like equal boys and girls. And we were obviously a girl came up with the idea and invited a couple guys and a couple girls, but everyone had a date, let's say. And so it was a really nice, nice party. That's, I think, why I remember the whole evening. and so we were driving there, and we learned about both events. So the song came on at sort of a similar time, and so that's what I remember about it. And I became, my dad sort of explained to me what was going on. It was really bad news, and that he was hoping that whole thing would work out, and it didn't, obviously. And that's really the context of how Netanyahu was born, right? He's born out of the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. He becomes prime minister not long after, as sort of a hard hand against terrorism that isn't going to compromise. And from there, he's used all these dirty tricks over the years. So I think his power is over. I think that most of what you're seeing here are the end days of Netanyahu. I don't think he survives any of this stuff. I think he is one of the first things to be sacrificed when Israel is more or less handed over to Saudi Arabia, which is what's going on. The protector of Israel is not going to be the city of London and the banking cartel and whatever other institutions Israel was plugged into. I think it's just going to be commercially bound, so it'll be protected because it's commercially bound to the Middle East. And I think the kingdom of Saudi Arabia is more or less, it's their problem now. And that's how I see it. That's how I see it. Is Israel real? I mean, it's a real place, and the people who are there were all heeded the call and to come, and so they've emptied out the Jews of the Sephardic Jews. There's none really left. I go to Morocco enough, and there's hostility there. People, not the last time, but one time in Morocco recently, I guess 10 years ago, maybe 2017. I was heckled on the street, Jew face, they called me, and all kinds of names. And that surprised me. I can see why a lot of the Jews left that part of the world. So there's no more Jews in Europe. There's no more Jews in all these places. Sephardic Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, they all split. And so they're all in Israel. So that's the issue, is that they're all there already. So what are you going to do? And that's why I think that Saudi Arabia is going to become the steward, I guess you could say, of whatever's next in Israel. But there's been a long history of Jews and Muslims, legally anyway, getting along just fine. And it was mostly this modern iteration. The Muslims didn't do the pogroms that we did in Europe, so they had a great time together for a long time. And when people, coming from a legal background like myself, when people describe Western civilization as Judeo-Christian, that's not from like a purist. I love the American Constitution. I love the history of British law. Rabbinical law and Sharia law are way more in sync than anything we created in the Christian world. They're not. We have a little more in common with like Justinian Roman law, not the ancient Roman law, but from Justinian era on. We're much closer to that legal tradition, and it has nothing to do with Sharia or anything like that. So the commonalities between Israel or Jewish governance, I mean, even to this day, they still use, Jews have to go to get married to like Cyprus. They leave the state of Israel to get married, because if you get married in Israel, then it has to be a religious wedding. And if it has to be a religious wedding, all these rules and provisions come in from rabbinical law, which is very complicated. Like divorce is reversed in in Israeli law, like or not reversed. They're almost identical. Pardon me. It's ours that's reversed, where divorce in Israel, if you get married in rabbinical law, the man has to agree. And if he doesn't agree, there is no divorce. And so, whereas in the Muslim thing, the man just has to say it like 3 times, right? It's like a kid's game when you get divorced in Muslim marriages. It's like divorce, divorce, divorce. I think it's like 3 or 5 times. If they repeat it, then it's over. So they can use it as like an escalatory threat against one of their wives. And if you're out of line, that's one. I said it once. Don't make me say it again. Otherwise, we're declared divorce. That's, I think, the Sharia law way of divorce, right? A man can just threaten. and rabbinical law is similar, but their whole tradition and everything just from a pure legal point of view. And of course, the state flows from these legal systems. So that's how I see it. I as someone, I used to just hear the euphemism Judeo-Christian. You hear a lot in university and stuff like that. After law school or during law school, I rejected that comment, that frame for all of however it's used and manipulated in history. There is a Christian history, but it's more Roman Christian than anything, Greco-Roman Christian. And there is definitely something Judeo civilizations, but Jewish civilization, but much closer to Sharia law. Not even in the same ballpark as the Roman and Christian laws that came after. So anyway, that's just a legal framework, legal tradition stuff. But that's how I see the world. So it's a real place, real people. Got to be, Paul was a Jew, Peter was a Jew, John was a Jew. Shall I go on? Yes, but their version of Judaism was closer to some Aramaic and Grecian studies, like the kingdom, like the world where Christ preached, like the ministry of Jesus. And a lot of what Jesus said had much more in tune with the Greek philosophies of the time and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not discounting that Christianity was born from Jews, out of Jews. That's 100% true. So I'm not trying to cut those ties between Israel, or not, there's no Israel, but Jewish religion and its history in Christianity. I just mean the states that are created out of it and what happens. So indeed, yes, Israel, both physically and spiritually. Yeah. Born once, die twice, born twice, die once. The second death judgment was not authority over those such born again twice by the above. Yeah. Muslim Brotherhood, brought to you by the City of London. We're going to be talking about Muslim Brotherhood today, for sure. Brought to you by the City of London. That's the latest Susan Kokinda video, is all about the City of London. Like Bloody Mary into a mirror. Oh, Jesus, the Messiah, Redeemer of Israel, desire of nations, is a Jew. Enough said. Yes. Don't confuse the state of Israel with the Israel of living God. Yeah. So I'm not denying any of those questions about the history of Christianity when it comes to the source being Jewish, but I don't want to downplay the Grecian aspects of the ministry of Jesus and the type of stuff that he was talking about, and what he was versed in and what he thought about the world. He didn't practice Judaism the way it's practiced today anywhere. It was a different time and a different structure, but no doubt it comes from there. I just mean the states that we have, like the law, the legal systems is all I'm talking about. And when we're talking about a state, we're talking about a legal system. The religious aspects of it, of course, are important, but again, the religious pieces that came out of Catholicism, for example, Catholicism is a living, breathing Roman cult. It just never stopped. It absorbed Christianity. But that's where you get a lot of these differences. So there you go. All right, let's get on to our interesting subjects. I'm going to take one more sip of coffee and then we're going to talk about what's going on. Totally acknowledged, Nolan. Good explanation. Yeah. Nazareth was a Greek city, precisely, Hodl Dude 138. Yes, it was a Greek city. And again, he was the ministry of Jesus, like you said. Nazareth was way more Greek than it was Jewish, or it had a lot of those influences going on at the time. So I know I visited the whole ministry of Jesus, and when I was there, I learned about a lot of the stuff about the Greek side of everything, and I didn't understand any of that at all. It surprised me. So I was unaware. All right, so we're going to get back to the Muslim Brotherhood stuff and Israel and what's going on in the Middle East. But first, let's start with a little analysis on what's going on. We can get a lot of the post Xi and Putin in. Now, none of this stuff is coming up the way I want it to. Hold on. That's not it. That's not it. Very peculiar. So we're going to start with a little chat about what's going on in China. I don't know why this stuff comes in all backwards now. There we go. So this is our first one of the day. So we're going to start New Testament written in Greek. Greek builds empires, roads. Yes, exactly. Now, I'm not going to go write a book saying we shouldn't use Greco or Judeo-Christian. It's just that's how I see the world. I don't need everyone to see it the same as me. I just stopped using those words, Judeo-Christian, after I figured this stuff out. I said, and I guess, I was probably a lot more anti-Muslim at the time. And especially after coming back from Israel back in 2008. And you're still all hopped up on 9/11 stuff. And when I would talk, it was more that I would talk about Judeo-Christian stuff, and I stopped seeing the world that way, more or less from law school and its effects. And I just happened to go to Israel at the end, and it sort of confirmed what I thought. So there you go, everyone. All right. So now that Putin has left China, and we've heard all of the fallout and analysis of what's going on there, of course, it's pretty funny. So first, what we'll say, trust and this and stuff, cooperation, this was all great. There was a really interesting part of their comments here, and you'll see how the fake news ends up interpreting it, and then I'm going to reinterpret it because they got it obviously all wrong. Here you say all-encompassing partnership and strategic cooperation between Russia and China in the new era is the best example of international relations in the modern world. These unshakable foundations have allowed our relations not once successfully passed the test for strength and stability. Putin to Xi, adding, we will work actively to create the base for the multipolar world. Here they say this is one of the parts that's getting hugely misinterpreted. They say, currently, amid the chaotic international situation, we observe some hegemony, he says. Russia and China must build a system of global governance. So here they say that we're not going to be doing the hegemony thing anymore. And here they say about all of that, Putin and Xi adopt a joint statement on establishing a multipolar world, creating a new type of international relations. They say formation of more just and reasonable global governance system against unilateral hegemony. Strategic alliance driven by guaranteed Russian energy flows amidst the global supply chain disruptions. Complete shift to ruble yuan financial networks. Unified push for a multipolar world order. Russian-Chinese relationships have reached a new level. Political trust is the biggest trait of our relationship. Xi to Putin to close mutual relations have risen to new heights. So they go a bit more on all of this stuff, modernizing, blah, 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 economy. But again, here they say it again. They're working together to stabilize the international situation. We work together in the name of peace. A joint declaration of multipolar world was signed to challenge the unilateral and hegemonic actions of the West. So it's an official alliance against the West. Damage imposed by unilateral actions and hegemony is off the scales. It threatens to bring us back to the law of the jungle. So here they're talking about all of this stuff. China and Russia will counter unilateralism and provocations aimed at denying the outcome of World War II, trying to revive the ghosts of Nazism and fascism. So they're saying all this stuff, and of course, right? So everything they said, they're against hegemony, they're against the colonial order or the new colonial order. They're against Nazism. They're against fascism. They're against all of this stuff, right? Um, saying it, straight up. And then, of course, the fake news comes out and says, Xi takes veiled swipe at Trump as he greets his frenemy. Is this from this? Yeah, exactly. So this is what they said, right? So Chinese President Xi Jinping took a not so subtle dig at Donald Trump and the US while meeting with Putin in Beijing. In his second high profile summit in a matter of days, Xi welcomed the Russian leader. And they said, calm amid the chaos, thinly veiled jab at the turbulence of the Trump presidency has caused in issues such as Iran and the sweeping tariffs. The international situation is marked by intertwined turbulence and transformation, while unilateral hegemonic currents are running rampant. They say here, right? It marks commonly used by Beijing to criticize what China sees as excessive U.S. dominance in foreign policy. So here everyone thinks that all of these comments were directed against the United States. But that's not what I read, obviously. So would they be spending this time going after the United States here? They say, again, attempts by a number of states, which states? To unilaterally manage global affairs, impose their interests on the entire world, and limit the sovereign development of other countries in the spirit of the colonial era have failed. And here they say China and Russia said without naming the US directly. So there's a whole bunch of fake news stories like this today. It was all over the place. People reacting, it's a thinly veiled attack on Trump. It's a thinly veiled attack on America. They're saying it. They're not going to put up with America anymore. But obviously, if you follow this show, if you follow the Susan Kokinda worldview, this is straight out of Promethean action. I mean, it's lifted straight out. Sovereign countries against the old City of London order, the old colonial order, the old imperial order. And if anyone out there is thinking that this has anything to do with America, they say clearly a number of states. Okay, well, is it the United States? No. If it was them, what you would see is not this. Here they say Russia, in the same conversation, they say here, Russia considers launching joint projects with the United States and China. Joint projects with the United States and China. What did I say was going to happen by this summer when you start hearing about China, Russia, and the United States working together? I said you'd likely see a bridge. I said you'd likely see an actual physical bridge between Alaska and Siberia. I think this is the beginning of that. That's Kirill Dmitriev, who's the fella who said it. He's the fella who's always doing Q drops. He's the fella who's always out there talking about the United States and China and America and Russia working together. He is a close confidant, of course, of Putin. He manages the sovereign wealth fund of the Soviet Union or Russia. He made a trip recently to Congress and was given a tour by Rep. Luna. He's generally out there talking about this stuff all the time and is quite anti-Europe and always goes on about their lack of energy and their weakness. So just looking at the flows and things that are happening, if they come out, if Russia and China come out and criticize the United States like this, would they allow, for example, the following, right? The other question here, the Cuba question. Trump yesterday indicting the Castros, all right? Indicting the Castros. Here they are indeed indicting the Castros. So from there, you see this, the reason why they can even indict the Castros to begin with is because Russia's just hung up the phone, stopped answering the calls, didn't leave a message, did not send any oil to Cuba. Here you see those countries, China and Russia, more or less allowing the United States to take control of the continent of the Western Hemisphere. Here we see, because it signals that Trump is removing deep state influence over Cuba, Trump is undoing the damage the CIA has done over the decades and fixing destabilized nations. It also signals Russia and China's influence is being removed from Cuba and the Western Hemisphere as a whole. I don't think it's a coincidence that as soon as Trump returns from his visit with Xi, we are now seeing movement on Cuba, while Trump is also seemingly backing off Taiwan. This fits into my overall thesis that Trump, Xi, and Putin have agreed to consolidate spheres of influence and stay out of each other's yards. In order to make this happen, all nations with deep state influence must be purged, and Cuba has been a CIA hotbed since 1959. The deep state is not just corrupt US politicians, it's a global terrorist organization that has embedded itself and overtaken nations around the world, Cuba being one of the most notable. The entire network is being cleared up. And so indeed, Trump here yesterday says that the US has CIA operatives on the ground in Cuba right now and that they're freeing up Cuba. Also teased a big announcement on the embargo coming pretty soon. They are moving fast. Welcome to 2026. We are not even halfway there. And this is the indictment of Castro. And they basically say here they might even black bag him like they did to, and he's facing capital punishment as well. So big penalty ready for him. Here, oh yeah, Cuba is next indeed. The Cuban population of Miami and certainly beyond Miami appreciate what the Attorney General just did today. We have Cuba on our mind. Very important. Raul Castro is no longer officially president, but he is part of the deep state brain trust that controls Cuba. He's the shadow leader. It looks like Trump is about to purge Cuba of deep state influence and return Cuba to her people, just like Venezuela. Amazing speech here, amazing moment yesterday. You had Marco Rubio addressing Cuba in Spanish. You love to see it. And here, Antonio Garcia Martinez here, a great guy from the world of Coinbase, says the following. The child of Cuban exiles, now the American Republic's chief diplomat, addressing the Cuban populace directly about the totalitarian dictatorship he escaped and they still live under, is one of those astonishing historical loops. So amazing stuff that is happening. And of course, Russia standing down, right? China standing down. Not only that, America standing down on Russia. Again, here, Bessent once more yesterday extends Russian oil waiver as Iran war squeezes supply. The U.S. will allow another 30 days for countries to import Russian oil already at sea. Does this sound like the same fight that the fake news is trying to tell you is going on between Russia, China, and America? Do you think Russia and China got together, started trashing Trump, while also getting Bessent to take sanctions off Russian oil that's already at sea, extending more of these waivers? All of these stories are related. This is America de-escalating situation with China and Russia. Do you think Russia and China chose to be sneaky and try to escalate things with the United States, or are they all talking about the same enemy? Are they all talking about Europe and the colonial states, right? Because we see right now as well that all of these places that the former that UK is trying to get its oil from, right? America's taking sanctions off Russian oil. The UK is trying to scam and say they're still sanctioning it, right? So here you see they had to apologize for this. UK must be going through tough times. On May 19th, the UK quietly issued new licenses allowing imports of diesel and jet fuel made from sanctioned Russian oil, plus a separate license for maritime transport. And they had to apologize for this because they don't want anyone doing it, right? Is the third country India? This is what money laundering looks like. So here you see that all of this, the approach they're taking in Europe is more about the financial flows and about keeping the money laundering going than it has anything to do with what America is doing, which is all transparent, which is all above board, which is all very clear, which lets you see exactly what is going on. They could buy directly, but if they do, it's the same way as the UK citizens pay inflated prices to a former colony, and everyone but citizens get to pretend to be smarter than everyone else. That's how Fabians work in real life. And that's why here, Susan Kokinda came out and showed that Bessent was targeting these financial flows to this money laundering edifice. So here you've got the China and Russia both calling out colonial powers, right? While America is letting those places continue to transact, desanctioning, de-escalating. While here you've got Bessent who goes on the attack on money laundering from those same European colonial powers. Here, if you listen to this Kokinda video, you'll see if we're serious about no money for terror, then there must also be no room for excuses. He wasn't looking at the Iranians, he was looking at the G7 finance ministers, and it turns out the excuses have an address, and it is London. And here you can see Susan Kokinda break this down about the London addresses and what's going on with this dope, all of these questions. And you can see here she goes on about the Muslim Brotherhood and how Muslim Brotherhood is connected into the entire architecture of this stuff here. I'll play this video for y'all.
Now, remember, Scott Bessent singled out shell companies, shadow banking networks, and drug cartels across the Western Hemisphere. When Bessent says there must be no room for excuses, he's driving home a point. We are finally and actually waging war on the cartels because we're not afraid to go after the imperial financial networks that have run drugs going back to Britain's opium wars. And it is a war. The May National Drug Control Strategy said this: over the past 5 years, nearly 500,000 Americans have been killed by drug overdosing and poisoning, more than the combined American military losses of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So the administration is treating it as a war. And in the last few weeks alone, there have been some significant battles won. The cartels have taken 3 hits. Boom number 1, Tren de Aragua. Last week, the first member of a foreign terrorist organization ever extradited from Latin America on terrorism charges landed in Houston. The Colombian government handed him over. The country that for decades slow-walked extraditions to the United States just delivered a TDA leader to face federal terror prosecution. That's what happens when sovereignty actually means something. Boom number 2. May 18th, a federal grand jury in Puerto Rico handed down 23 indictments against La Familia Nunca Muera. That means the family that never dies. Well, it looks like it died this week. The prosecutors used RICO, the racketeering statute, and they charged the entire enterprise as one organization. The whole network, from the leadership down to the shooters, were taken out in a single indictment. Boom number 3. The sitting governor of Sinaloa in Mexico, Ruben Rocha Moya. He was indicted by the Southern District of New York under the allegation that El Chapo's sons kidnapped Rocha Moya's political rivals to get him elected governor. In exchange, he gave the cartels free rein. Now, the United States is not just indicting drug traffickers. They're now indicting the political infrastructure that makes the cartel possible. And then the Mexican government itself moved. Mexico's own financial intelligence unit froze the bank accounts of Governor Rocha Moya, his children, and his senior aides. And at the same time, Mexico approved a new intelligence sharing arrangement. So the FBI, the DEA, ATF, Homeland Security, and Customs and Border Protection, all of them are now operating inside a Mexican state security building. FBI Director Kash Patel made clear, this is a result of an administration that is fighting a real war on all fronts.
When we take out Tren de Arago's senior-most leader, we're helping the Colombians down south make sure they don't have one of the worst terrorists of the worst criminal terrorist organizations on the planet in their backyard anymore. And we're going to continue to extrapolate on their networks and arrest everyone and anyone that was involved with it. Kicking open this door that President Trump has done has allowed us to capture 8 of the most violent, top 10 most wanted in the FBI's charts in 1 year.
So put it all together. Bessent tells Europe no excuses and targets London-based institutions. The White House cites Britain's Muslim Brotherhood as the source of all Islamic terrorism, and Dope Incorporated is being treated as the enemy combatant that it is. One target, and it is in Iran. The target is the city of London, and the irregular warfare apparatus it has run for 200 years. Promethean action is doing more than just.
So, and you can even see the belligerence if you just keep looking. It doesn't take much, right? So I'm telling you that you see the fake news think that when you hear China and Russia say they're against hegemonic, many states, colonialism, all of these things, and you see them at the same time get out of the way of what America's doing, you see them at the same time promoting joint projects between America and those other two countries. And at the same time, you see Trump on his end moving against all of this deep state apparatus, all of these financial maneuvers. You see Bessent come straight out and tell the G7 countries, their finance ministers, we're going after your banking, no more excuses. And then you see the Europeans. So just go look at the Europeans. Here's our favorite, Kaja Kallas. Here she is again. So she comes around during all of this, right? And she comes and says, actually, the China is a disease, she says here. She's a disease. This is some great stuff. I will play the audio on this because it's too good. Let me know if the audio is playing.
The EU Middle East strategy is in the working plans, but it's no point if drafting it right now when there's so much uncertainty.
So here she says she doesn't want to get involved in the Middle East because there's too much uncertainty.
No, it depends very much how this war.
So she wants to wait to find out how the war ends before she makes up her decision about how to enter the war. There's too much going on in the Middle East, she says. There's too much going on. We can't get involved. But it's even better because she comes and, of course, she'll never say anything good about Russia. But indeed here, she called China a disease. And specifically for Europe, she called China a cancer. She called China a cancer. And now she says the EU can't have Middle East strategy because, brace yourselves, there's just too much going on there. This comes among hundreds of similarly idiotic statements basically every time she opens her mouth. That looks more and more as she comes around here and says the same thing, right? So at what point do you have Euro elites actively picking fights with Trump, more openly hostile to Russia, and at any other point in my lifetime, and also calling China a disease? So, cool plan. Just shit on all three major powers simultaneously at once for no reason. So this is the real story here, right? If she's coming out and saying it, Politico has more on what Kallas said here. She said Europe has a very clear understanding of the diagnosis of the disease when it came to China, but did not yet have an agreement on the cure. Beijing will not enjoy the descriptor of a disease. So were Xi and Putin really targeting America and Trump, or is everyone turning against the City of London architecture simultaneously at the same time in coordination, building bridges? I'm telling you, you're going to hear about the bridge. You're going to hear about a bridge between Alaska and Siberia this summer, because that's the way this is headed. They're not enemies. Enemies are the old world of these international groups. These are the enemies they were talking about when they talked about diplomacy and institutions and organizations. They're talking more about what we saw with Trump's peace board and more about the new structures. They even said we're going to build new structures. The old ones simply don't work, right? Look at NATO. Now they've brought this broad, right, from Canada. NATO's top military chair. It's going to be Jenny Carignan, defense chief hailed as an exceptional leader and candidate for an alliance post. It's her. This is her a few weeks ago crying over the systemic racism in the military. So she's now in charge of NATO. You think this is who Putin and Xi are? This they don't have a problem with it. This is cool, right? Like, it's great. They love NATO. And they're so happy that a shrieking female is now in charge of it. That's exactly the world they're trying to build. So none of it makes sense, of course. It's all people like this. And here's where the energy question, so the pact on the multipolar world, right, is all about energy. It was all about energy. The pact in the multipolar world that you saw between Xi and Putin was guaranteeing energy flows to China. Everything you saw last week with Trump in China was about guaranteed energy flows to China that don't come from Iran with the sanctioned oil that is below market price. They just want them paying market prices. So this whole thing between the shrieking women, the Kaja this broad here from NATO, and all of these organizations shows you how energy and these political systems are starting to overlap. And the energy question is the biggest one, because you can see war, energy, and these political systems all playing out in the Iran story and the Iran situation. And of course, here, Greta Thunberg is just the perfect version of this, right? Greta Thunberg, fuck Germany and fuck Israel, she says now. Greta's gone full-blown terrorist cheerleader, hasn't she? And let's not forget, Greta cheered the Houthis launching drones at innocent mariners carrying food aid to starving children in Africa. Those ships had to sail around Africa, burning metric tons of extra bunker fuel. She didn't fight starvation or CO2. She cheered on both. That's why these sludge people are losing. And it's even happening in Europe. I mean, the energy question is what's changing the entire dynamic. That's why the energy flows from the Strait of Hormuz. If you look at the Strait of Hormuz today, everything is flowing. It's all going to China. It's going where it's got to go. It's totally uncorked. There's oil going everywhere. The Bitcoin insurance is working just fine. No one's complaining. Totally energy moving around the world. The only energy that didn't move, again, if you want to look at who's suffering the most, now let's forget about the people of Iran and the people of Israel who got a lot of bombs dropped on them in the past few weeks. UAE a little less, but still got whacked. But the place that has the most trouble with the Iran war has been Europe. They're the ones paying the greatest cost. They're the ones, I mean, actual money cost, not lives. So, in lives, of course, much worse in the Middle East. But in the case of the financial flows, which is how you have to interpret what's going on there, this is all financial systems. And that is the actual story. And oil is flowing. But pinching the oil is actually changing the politics of Europe, because it's creating a domestic European political situation that aligns with energy and is not something Greta is going to be happy about. But you're seeing what it's causing already. That's why she's saying, Greta says, fuck Germany, because Germany is moving that way too. The AfD's Common Sense Revolution. This is the same Kirill Dmitriev who's saying we're going to get all of these partnerships and projects, joint projects between China, Russia, and America. Here, seeing that even in Saxony, the AfD is now at 42%. We're taking our country back. AfD's Common Sense Revolution. AfD strives to solve Germany's immigration problem and restore Germany's energy security, competitiveness, and prosperity. Germans are tired of failed bureaucrats who lie and fail to correct their past mistakes. AfD will correct their mistakes. So this whole story about what's going on is about energy. It's about premiums. It's everything coming into play on the same plane in the same world. And if you think about how this relates, right, it has everything to do with persuasion now. It has everything to do with communications. It has everything to do with the system that we live in. And that's why here Trump is saying that the Iran deal is so close now. Oil is about to plummet. This is Trump just yesterday. Let me see. Let me see if I can get 3 in a row here. Let me see if I can get 3 in a row audio in tune without having to reset.
In the history of the stock market, and now we're blowing it away. We're blowing everything away, and we're going to end that war very quickly. They want to make a deal so badly. They're tired of this. This should have happened for 47 years. Somebody should have done something about it, and it's going to happen, and it's going to happen fast, and you're going to see oil prices plummet.
And indeed, I see that coming. And here's Observing Consciousness saying, Trump going to China, allowing Xi space to preserve internal stability, save face, then suddenly signaling an Iran deal and lower oil at the exact moment global markets are starving for rate relief is not random sequencing. It is timing architecture. I've been saying that this had to be done by the time Trump got control of the Federal Reserve from the very beginning for this exact reason. When Trump allows Hormuz to stabilize, yes, we are in control. And which is what's been happening all week. The boats have been flowing. No trouble. Boats coming in and out, going around, no trouble at all. Energy premiums collapse. Inflation unwinds across shipping, manufacturing, food, and logistics faster than central banks projected. which forces the rate environment to shift, unlocks liquidity, accelerates AI and infrastructure expansion, and resets the entire market mood almost overnight. The day after Massey goes down and GOP sweeps primaries, there are no coincidences. Watch how the market swings as elections 2026 heat up. The surface narrative looks geopolitical, but underneath it, energy, currency, trade, elections, and capital flow layers all begin moving together in the same direction at once. This is what this show is all about. Why we analyze the financial flows and the persuasion that goes along with them. And what I've been saying is that, of course, winning creates good chemistry, vibes are going to change, but also attacking that entire infrastructure. Remember, I told you that there was an order to things that I have been seeing from the beginning. And this is, I thought maybe things can go faster, but the sequential order that I've been saying is important. I said from the very beginning, when Trump went after US aid and the NGOs, very important, because that's what funded all of the brainwashing and all of the propaganda. So you get rid of that, right? Move from the US aid story straight into cultivating interest and all of this Epstein files stuff, and get everyone interested to find out what's going on and start setting the table for Besant and Powell and what's going on with that fight. That all happened. Remember, the Epstein stuff and the Iran stuff are related, because the big beautiful bill, which was being argued just before the first Iran intervention last summer, caused this kayfabe, a flare up of discussions around ending the Fed. And you've never seen that before. You've never seen Americans widespread discussing end the Fed. We only did because Trump was in the Epstein files and he was getting blackmailed by Bibi Netanyahu and had to go bomb Israel or bomb Iran and all these things. And so, but because of course he's in the Epstein files. And so that created this interest. And of course that all wraps up, right? Elon back in the fold, right when MBS happens to be in DC, and that's when the Epstein files are released, and then all is forgotten. And then we move into, very quickly thereafter, the beginning of the Venezuela thing happens. Then we move into this Iran story. So that's the first year of the Trump administration, first year and a half of the Trump administration. And so the whole point was to re-architect this stuff. So the surface narrative, right? The surface narrative has the underpinnings. Underneath it is energy, currency, trade, elections. And if it's not underneath it, then it's all just fiat brainwashing fluff. It's all just the old style of projection and word thinking and Kaja Kallis type architecture and diplomacy, the whole old world stuff. And that's why seeing here, when Data Republican shows exactly why it was important, part 2 is up. She says the democracy ecosystem claims 33 billion US trash tokens a year and employs hundreds of thousands of people. There is no puppet master. They converge through constant conventions, meeting, aligning on priorities, and deploying. And so here you see exactly how all of this propaganda has worked all this time. It uses all this money to create this narrative projection. And that is what had to be destroyed first. Here's Mike Benz talking about exactly the same thing. Can we do 4 audio shares in a row without it failing? Let's find out. Here he's talking about disinformation as such a huge and growing field in 2023 that venture capital firms, before Trump, it was starting to become a venture capital thing, just to show you the money that goes into this reality projection, into this propaganda. It actually got venture capital interested in the disinformation world, focused startups to get on the financial upside of the censorship gold rush. And that isn't how it worked. This is the end of fiat right here. This was the crowning achievement, the end state of the fiat world. When I told you that propaganda, to propagate, that it's like a node, if you're dealing with money that is government words, which is what fiat is. Fiat is a government declarations, right, by fiat. So if fiat, being government words, is your money, how do you propagate it around the world? Just like how Bitcoin goes around the world is from mining. Who mines the fiat? It's the propagandists that propagate it. It is the legacy nodes. If you have the money as cryptographic keys, then you need a proof of work type mining system to propagate it. That's what we know and understand in software. That's why it works that way. And if you compare that to fiat, which is government declarations and government words, they propagate around the world. How do you get the words to flow? How do you get people to believe it? Propaganda. And that's why it was such a big business, because it's how reality was projected. Here's Mike Benz talking about exactly what a good business it seemed to the propagandists. Let's see, 4 in a row. Can we do it?
A number of venture capital firms were present at CensorshipCon, specifically interested in investing their financial capital in censorship startups. And I presume this is a list of the sponsors. I wonder if this hasn't been washed. Yeah, there you go. They 404'd it. Embarrassing now, is it? Wayback Machine, this shit. What, it's not politically popular anymore? Ain't too proud anymore? Ain't too proud? This is just like NATO wiping too proud to beg, huh? Ain't too proud. Ooh, baby, baby. Walking out that door. Ain't too proud to beg.
Tell us, there's some Canadian scumbag here.
I was looking this up, that vendors.
So there you go. That's why it was done that way. And when you think about what's going on in terms of persuasion, again, go back to this idea of all of these folks working together, BRICS and everyone, and how we actually combat this system, and why the order was done in the way that it was done, and how we were able to push against this fiat propagation and all of this money and all of the systems that were used, right? The same systems that we see, the $33 billion industry and venture capitalists lining up to push fiat. Here you see why the architecture, why there's a timing, why there's sequencing to all this. Again, here you go. Are you ready to go full circle? He says, I've mapped this system of systems officially since 2022 and formally since 2015, he says. Some still think these were isolated corporate events. He says, Twitter 1.0 gets pulled apart under the exact period of Executive Order 13818. Infrastructure pressure is expanding globally. Then suddenly it reemerges as X. Then X links to XAI. XAI links to Colossus. Colossus links into SpaceX. SpaceX links into Starlink. Starlink links into orbital communications, defense infrastructure, global data routing, battlefield connectivity, and sovereign AI compute. Seeing it full circle. The old system built centralized financial, media, intelligence, and technological control structures to engineer perception and dependency at planetary scale. This is exactly what I mean about the fiat industrial complex and projection and narrative projection and what all that means. Then the architecture itself got turned inward against the operators running it. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, ESG, Aladdin, central banking pressure, inflation cycles, institutional overreach, censorship escalation, narrative reengineering, NGO laundering, global compliance structures, all of it became exposure accelerants because the system could not stop itself from revealing its own operating model once pushed into overextension. This is the paradox most people still cannot see, but are starting to. The deeper control system pushed, the more visible the machinery became. We saw that in COVID. We saw that in the stolen 2020 election. When I've told you about the Leviathan that you could see, it emerged in the 2020 election and you couldn't ignore it anymore. And Russia was a hint at it. But now here we are, the whole Joe Biden presidency was that. Here at the end of the story, it's now obvious and the machinery is completely exposed. People like Mike Benz, we've seen it now for a while, right? Now the same infrastructure layers are being consolidated into a sovereign operational stack spanning AI, communications, energy, logistics, satellites, finance, data, and defense integration simultaneously. Many think they are watching politics, they are watching infrastructure conquest and civilizational realignment. Quantum chess indeed. Shall we play a game? And that is the game we're playing. And if it isn't enough for you to see that this is all true and that is actually what's going on, that this entire persuasion system is changing, that Twitter, orbital, space, just look at what's happening simultaneous to this to show you the trend of power. the SpaceX IPO, the very engine that helped expose all of this fake news, the fake world architecture, the fake narrative architecture, the fiat stuff, all breaking because of financial winning. What I told you was the case. It was all about money. It was all about making money, all about aligning people with power. People align with power. You have to create the power structures. You have to create the wealth, the real wealth, not the fake fiat wealth. And here we're seeing it happen. Indeed, the United States Securities and Exchange Commission got the S1 form from SpaceX yesterday. The IPO will be the greatest wealth creation event in history. It's going to be over $1 trillion for all of this stuff. And indeed, here it's a pretty incredible. SpaceX is such a badass company. In their IPO filing, they wrote this: first private company to develop and launch a liquid fuel rocket to reach orbit, the first private company to successfully dock a private spacecraft on the International Space Station, the first to successfully propulsively land, what a great word, and refly orbital class rocket boosters, the first to begin deploying large-scale LEO broadband satellite constellation, the first private company to transport astronauts to orbit, returning America's ability to fly astronauts to and from the International Space Station, the first to manufacture consumer-grade phased array user terminals at scale, the first to deploy a large-scale LEO satellite to mobile constellation, the first to build a gigawatt scale AI training cluster and largest coherent superconductor, the first gigawatt scale megapack battery installation, the only company capable of building orbital AI compute at scale. And they get also this here, which is also incredible. We see Anthropic is paying SpaceX 1.25 billion US trash tokens a month until May 2029 for AI compute capacity, with capacity ramping in May and June in 2026 at a reduced fee. That's part of it. The most important part of all of this new architecture for us, as far as we're concerned here, just to show you how real all of this stuff is, this company, this behemoth, this $1 trillion filing that is re-architecting all of our narrative systems, how we tell stories, how we engage the world. Again, I'll go back to this one here. Indeed, all of this was how the old system, right, the old infrastructure that was there was a deeper control system. The architecture itself got turned inward against the operators running it, built on centralized financial media intelligence and technological control structures, perception of reality. This very company that inverted it in this S1 filing also announced not just AI integration, but that they own 18,712 Bitcoin worth more than 1.45 billion. That's more than we thought they had. Major Bitcoin corporate treasury as part of the first global $1 trillion IPO. We're building a new system, guys. They're going to the moon. We got moon bases coming. We're building a moon base, everyone. That's NASA. Of course, they're going to be talking about it next week, but we've got a moon base coming. It is going to be great. I see in this story, in the comments from, where was it? Where was it? There. The Bitcoin block. I'll get to a lot of your comments later, Bitcoin block. But here he says, China can't take Taiwan. USA controls sea and sky. Remember Stalingrad? Even more important, I don't give a shit about the sea and the sky anymore. Space. That's the only thing you need to control. There's only one real, true, at stake battlefield in the world left, and that is space. None of the other stuff matters. Space is the only story that matters. And if you win space, you win the whole thing. And it looks like we're going to win space. So very good news, and space bases coming. And the reason I think of all this space stuff, because this whole thing you've heard about narrative inversion, an old whiteboard, 2022. What do we got here? Similar to the whiteboards I've made about pyramids. It's just a different design. I was talking about, different eras when I made this one here. Feudalism, the crown at the top, the castle, the sword, nationalism. We have the politician at the top. We have the banks and the army. You could put a communications tower in there too. And then, of course, the people at the bottom. But of course, in this new sovereign stack, exactly what you heard from Putin and Xi, sovereign nations for now. We're going to organize more individually as we move through this system. But this is the new stack. This is exactly what you just heard Twitter, SpaceX, X, all of that stuff perform. This is it. These are rockets. This is nuclear energy. This is complete and total free-flowing energy between sovereign nations. This is where we're going with all this stuff. And this is why when you see this new stack of reality start to line up, this is the formula. And you're going to see it because this is not the same fake binary of left-right politics. This sovereign system is going to break, finally, with Bitcoin, is going to break the fake prison of left and right politics in America and around the world. The fake socialism and communism versus capitalism, all of these fake constructs that have divided people for so long. You'll see, because people are seeing the conundrum of the left-right imbalance in America right now, or the opposition. And you're seeing it in the data center argument. The whole data center argument is exactly that. Pirate Wire is saying data centers aren't stealing your water. They're defending the data centers here. Cernovich says, while this is directionally true, I'm not sure who the audience is for it. The left opposes data centers due to resentment of the billionaires. Water is an excuse. The right's skepticism is regarding surveillance state. Big tech's handling of COVID is a model for techno dystopia. So what he's describing here is the old left and right. And I think he's totally correct. I am going to have him on my show shortly. Check out latest from Alberino, fascinating ancient insights into our human family. Think Christ Jesus. So Timothy Alberino and Cernovich are making movies together. So that's what I'm going to have him on, describing that new angel thing that you saw, angels in the Bible. That's a Cerno film using Timothy Alberini. They got together. I only learned about Timothy Alberino from Cernovich. Years ago, I learned about it. Probably the first time I hung out with Cerno in 2021. And he was telling me all about Alberino, and I went back and started listening to it a lot. And I'm a big fan of the Timothy Alberino content. So bring it back to Cernovich. Cernovich here, this would be the normal fake prison of two ideas applied to the data center argument. But we're going to get a third way. Now, you know, I'll say we're going to get a third way because it's true. I understand why people have these divisions. Did you see this thing in LA? Not Spencer Pratt. We're going to talk about Spencer Pratt if we have time in the next few minutes. But I get it. I mean, did you see this? Imagine you had no idea what He-Man was and you were just in LA yesterday and then you went for a walk, but you don't know anything about He-Man, right? You don't know anything about He-Man. And Skeletor shows up in your night sky in the biggest drone show in the history of Earth. You might have some problems with this modern world as well. What would your feelings be if you just looked up into the sky and saw fucking Skeletor looking like this? I would probably be pretty freaked out if I was. Imagine you're like 70 years old and you don't know anything about Skeletor, and you turn around and it's like, what? What? So there's He-Man right there. Amazing stuff, right? You love to see it. And I mean, you might figure out what's going on by that point, by the power of Grayskull. But still, that kind of incorporates why we're lined up now for a type of paradigm shift, because there are not a lot of, there's not a lot of takers for this kind of environment. And so here you see Trump, I think, doing his best. He's not quite on top of this stuff, but he will be able to sell this. Here he is talking about this AI story. Can we get 5 audios in a row? Can we get 5 audio in a row? Is it possible? Let's see.
What's your message to American families who are scared by the rise of AI? They're worried that their kids are not going to be able to have jobs someday because AI will take over.
I'll tell you, AI has been amazing because right now we have more jobs, more people working right now in the United States by far than we ever had before. And outside of the war, and I assumed the economy was going to go down, the stock market would go down 20-25%. It's actually up. The stock market is higher now than it was before I started the Iran situation. And on the Iran, I had no choice because they were going to have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to give them a nuclear weapon. But that's going to end soon, one way or the other.
So here he's just starting his persuasion on this jobs thing. What I think he's going to, the way I handle it on this show, and the way I think the middle road forward is the old jobs. The old jobs, the new jobs. And the jobs we're terrible at now, mother, father, we're really bad. Brother, sister, friend, we're not good at these jobs. Those are the jobs of the future. And we haven't really found a way to articulate that. You got to keep sounding optimistic for now. But it is accelerationism, and we're going to get it whether we like it or not. But the good news is there is going to be a new new opportunity for people to focus on the things and to treat them like jobs. I mean, you wouldn't imagine what my wife has to go through as a stay-at-home mom and homeschool teacher. And the amount of people who say, oh, so you don't work, or the amount of people who say, oh, are you going to go back to work when the kids grow up, or are you, it's just, they just always go on that. They're not, they especially if it's another working mom, they can't have they have to insult. They have to, there's nothing else they can do. They have to belittle it like it's not a job. Right. And so from that point of view, you can see that there's a lot of room to, let's say, I don't know about promote, but start to see these jobs as real things and important things. And so that I think is going to be part of the sales pitch here. Now, I'm going to skip a couple of these stories because I wanted to talk about libertarians. I'm not going to do that. I was going to talk a bit about the boomer-zoomer divide. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to skip right to this persuasion game again, and just to show you how, because we have the two versions running simultaneously, the old way and the new way, it's great to contrast them because it will help you see where things are headed. So the old way, here's Nithya Raman, the other woman running for mayor of LA. So she comes out with this. It's been more than 17 months since the Palisades fire, and there's still no plan for rebuilding, and no one's in charge. We need real leadership and accountability. She's on the board. Then you get the LA Times. So that's her trying to say, in the old political way, this is a nothing. Then you get the LA Times saying, Proud's loudest fans fundamentally loathe modern day LA, and that should chill all other Angelinos, right? LA Times calling us Gustavo Arellano. Sorry if I got your name wrong, Gustavo Arellano. So here you see Spencer Pratt makes LA great again acolytes and their dark version of the city. Oh, this is the same guy who just recently wrote How I Learned to Stop Worrying about non-citizens voting in LA elections. This is who we're dealing with here. How I learned to not worry about no elections. It was such a good thing. But indeed here, right, what we're seeing is this new change. Spencer Pratt's LA mayoral campaign is one of the clearest examples of where politics is heading. He's running his campaign like a content creator, not a politician. Music videos dissing his opponents, memes, community-generated content that he just reposts. He hasn't even needed to produce most of the ads himself because his supporters are doing it for him. This is the same playbook that worked for Trump, for Mamdani in New York City. A background in television or social media, or just understanding how the internet works, gives you an enormous advantage over career politicians still running traditional campaigns. It's not just about the content you produce, it's about creating the kind of cultural engagement that makes other people want to produce content for you. Whether Pratt wins or not, the model is going to become the norm. The traditional campaign ad is dying. The candidates who figure this out first are the ones who have the real edge. And that's why it's almost impossible now to imagine him not winning. I don't know if you've seen his newest ad, but here he is playing. Let's see if we can do 6. Can we get 6? Can we get 6 videos in a row? 6 in a row. We're trying. This has been, honestly, the subtle persuasion here in this one is the best I've seen yet. where he's got these, here it is. Here you have rugged beer drinking MAGA bros using liberal coded language. It's genius because having conservative looking men speak like liberals is jarring. It shatters viewers' tribal stereotypes. So this stuff is just absolutely whacking people in the brain, and it is absolutely working.
This mayor race is really heating up. Who you guys voting for? Haven't decided? Same, haven't really been following it. Same. I'm not MAGA or anything. But the city's kind of gone to shit though, right? Oh yeah. Jessica stepped on a needle at the playground the other day. I'm not MAGA or anything though. I'm not MAGA or anything, but have you been downtown lately? Looks like an episode of The Walking Dead. Not that I'm MAGA or anything though. Spencer Pratt seems like he has some good ideas. Not that I'm MAGA or anything. He does seem really angry all the time, though. Well, they did burn his house down. Also, apparently he's staying at the Bel Air Hotel, not the trailer on his property. Well, yeah. They burned his house down. Okay, we're all adults here. How about on 3, we just say who we're voting for? 1, 2, 3. Spencer Pratt. Yeah. Spencer Pratt. Spencer Pratt. Can you imagine if our wives knew?
We're all voting for Spencer Pratt, right?
Of course. Obviously. I wish I could vote like yesterday.
I mean, just perfection. Comedy Mysterious World says, when I was in the Marines, I'd get funny looks in prep meetings when I'd request BZ gas be part of our mission package. BZ is airborne LSD. That and Marines with monster masks. Imagine it with drones. I'm still like, I'm gonna get, because I got a pool at the farm, and I really want one of those robot dogs or that can swim too. So you hide the robot dog in the water, and then whatever, the criminal comes, and imagine a robot dog that can run like 400 miles coming out of a pool with a laser beam on its head looking at you. It's the scariest thing I can imagine. I'll put a mask on it. It'll be real scary. We'll do it. Not that I'm MAGA or anything. Instant classic. Yes. Very funny stuff indeed. Very funny stuff. So we love it. So there you go, everybody. Those are the stories I have for the day. I had more, but we were late and we just didn't get to them today. We'll get to them next time. I had more Spencer Pratt. Oh, no, that's not worth it. Let me see if I have any that I must show you before we go. Nah, well, there's good stuff, but nothing that can't wait till tomorrow. Nothing that pressing. Too much gas bagging today. Gas bagging. Speaking of gas bagging, let's gas bag, Hank. How you doing?
Unbelievable. I knew you were going to call me a gas bagger. I knew it was coming. How's it going this morning?
I gotta kind of go with whatever I'm just talking about. I
get it. I'm the same way. I get it. You make a segue with what you got. I understand how it goes. I'm as guilty of that as the next. So what have you guys been up to this morning?
Well, we were talking, we did one last corral of the Putin visits, analyzed it in respect to everything else going on in the world. You started to see my prediction come true, where we had the Russians admit that there's a possibility of joint U.S., Russian, Chinese physical infrastructure projects. We're going to see a bridge between Alaska and Siberia. Peace.
Oh boy, I've been saying they should do that for years now. That's how the dinosaurs got here.
We're gonna get to drive our RVs to the Soviet Union or to Russia. So cool.
I've been dying to drive to Russia on an RV road trip. That sounds wonderful.
That's
So
it.
you know what else is wonderful? We got an exciting first hour on Roxham TV News. We're actually going to be joined by Giacomo Zucco is going to be
Oh,
joining
no
us.
way. We love
Yeah.
Giacomo. Super fun.
Yeah. So super exciting. We got a lot to talk about. Irish drug lords who have seized Bitcoin that are also beekeepers. That's a wild story. The SpaceX IPO, Bezos.
Yeah, we did the
headquarters,
SpaceX
CFO.
IPO today too.
Yeah, it's a big one. So a lot to talk about. I'm going to let you finish up with your gang. Stay tuned. Nolan will be joining me and Giacomo at Roxham TV News in the next hour. So see you then, Nolan.
Awesome, man.
Thanks, bud.
See you later, Hank. Well, I'm
See
looking
ya.
forward to that. I'm a Giacomo Zucco fan personally. So there you go. The audio gods are with you. I think a deal between China, Russia, and the USA can be made. I think it's already made, frankly. I think it's already made. I think we're there. Great humor is pure truth. That's why Democrats ain't funny. It's true. The truth is powerful. People love it. Indeed. Johnny Midas with the audio check. We love it. Bitcoin is such a life-enhancing technology. AI going to demand payment in Bitcoin. I wrote a book on that. Trump is writing a blank check on AI. We will beat China. US will print until we win. That's what you'll hear a lot on this show. That's for sure. Take any timestamps by chance. Trump made blood vessels burst. It was funny. I hope Hank took the inhibitors. Struggling. It was the first hour. It was in the first hour. Great show, and I appreciate free flowing gas bag. And Hank, anyone watch? Oh yeah. I see what you said. Yeah. What do they put in the coffee today, son? This is most people I've ever met. There you go. Okay, folks, I'm going to cut the broadcast now. I appreciate all of the comments. We love the comments. Very lively comment section today. I got to figure out how to get them back on the screen. I hate not having them on the screen. I simply cannot figure it out. I wonder if this would work. No, it just screws them all up. No, this might work now. Let me just try one thing here. One thing before I go. I've plugged in. Now, if I do this and this, and then I have a chat. Not great, but I can do this. And that makes sense. Okay, maybe I have a solution. I didn't know I can separate the chat. That's what I just figured out. Okay, there we go. We're doing it. All right, folks, that's what we got. I'm going to cut this and maybe I'll be able to bring it back tomorrow. Okay, everybody. And red-pilled people, that's you, a rare thing. Well, we do our best. The Bitcoin block. Okay, everybody. I'm about to cut the broadcast. You'll see the thanks for watching screen. I want to tell you first, personally, thanks for watching. See you all tomorrow. Peace out.